What's up, it's Jan, back at it again with another nerdy bookish video. This is gonna be my January wrap-up. January. That sounds so weird. Currently filming on February 4th. We just dropped Christina off at the airport. Of course, we're back to the grind. Currently uploading a video, now filming my January wrap-up. If you're new here, I do my wrap-ups in the reread, rewrite, burn tag format. If you don't know what that is, I put all the titles that I read on little slips of paper in the skull, mix it all together, and you know I got the best of both worlds. No, but I pick out 3 at a time, say whether I would reread, rewrite, or burn, and then I give my little review of each one, give my star rating, all the good things. If it doesn't make sense, you'll see along the way. Starting with stats, getting right on into it because we have a lot of books to talk about, specifically 32 books, because I don't know what happened in January, but January is always a strong reading month for me. And I actually read a decent amount of my list of hopefuls, which is really essentially a TBR, but like I don't tell anyone what's on there, so I don't feel super accountable for them, so I don't feel guilty every time I switch things around. But I read a decent amount of them. And then I'm doing this thing where the ones that I don't read per month, I carry over to the next month. So that's like my little punishment, but no one knows but me and whoever happens to see my journal. So yeah, 32 books, so 10 rounds of reread, rewrite, burn, and then 2 wild cards. Oh, I didn't do it again. You know what? I'm gonna calculate my pages. Hold on. Where's my phone? Okay, we're gonna pull a new year, new me, and actually try to remember to calculate my physical page count at least. In terms of physical pages, just because it's easier to calculate than like percentages and shit from audiobooks. But I do read a lot of audiobooks. Well, not as much as physical books, but like at work and on my drives and stuff, and my commute's longer now to work, so I do get through a lot of audiobooks in a month. Anyway, now there's a siren, so sorry if you can hear that. We're just gonna push through. The number of pages I read in January was 6,248. Number of BIPOC authors. I'm trying to do this thing where at least 50% of my books are BIPOC per month. So then hopefully it evens out where the ratio is pretty even by the end of the full year. So I did 16 white authors and 16 BIPOC authors. Best book. Faebound, of course. I haven't shut up about this book. I am currently reading The Final Strife by the same author. I just needed this author's work again. I almost reread this, but I decided against it. I tackled The Final Strife instead. I can tell you right now, you can tell that her writing has evolved. I just love this world. It's such good pacing, perfect pacing for less than 400 pages of a fantasy. And it's the first in a trilogy, I want to say. I feel like you don't, at least I don't see, and I've talked to many people who agree with me that like we don't see many Black Fae books. So I was really excited for this. I don't know when the vlog for this is gonna come out. If you liked animal companions in your fantasies, definitely. There are these things called Obeya, and they're like leopard-like creatures, and I loved Pila. Think Fourth Wing Dragons, like those personalities, but like 10 times better. Like the timing of those animals' humor, so much better in Faebound. Everything's better in Faebound, but that's like the thing that I can compare to that a lot of people have read. There's like betrayals, there's a sapphic romance, there are a couple steamy scenes actually that I was swooning over. It's a plot-heavy fantasy romance, but again, there are some solid steamy scenes in there as well. My favorite, I think, is the animal companions. I didn't realize how much I love that element in fantasy books until I actually find books like this. I was able to follow my little brain cells and I were able to work together and follow the entire plot, keep the characters straight and everything, and I understood the world, the magic, and there's elves, there's fae. The characters are pretty fleshed out too. I love the characters' personalities. The ending was really good too, and it didn't really end on a cliffhanger, but it leads to a second book really well, if that makes any sense. Highly recommend. It's definitely going on my top 10 of the year. I think about this book every single day. This was tied with Foe, which was my first 5-star of the year, but there's just something about a fantasy that I can comprehend from page 1 to the last page that just hits. The 5-star hits differently than like a psychological horror thing, but this is really good as well. So that was my second contender for best book, if you were curious. My worst book, I gave a 1-star, I think. I can't remember. Oh, The Auster Academy by Lemony Snicket. So this is the 5th book in the series of unfortunate events. I've never finished the whole thing, so I'm like on a mission to finally tackle the entire thing and complete it, because I am a completionist and I don't care if it's decades later, I'm gonna finish this fucking series. And I believe I left off on the 5th one, but I think I've read this before actually. So either way, I gave it 1 star because obviously I'm not the target audience. And as a kid, I would have loved this. I love the vibes of the series, and like the plot was actually kind of entertaining. The reason I gave it 1 star is because they used a turban as a disguise. There were some things that were said that were quite problematic, especially because this was written by a white author and the character wearing the turban was also white, and there was something about like,
it's okay, I'm used to being religiously prosecuted.
Something about that just didn't sit right with me. I don't know if it's just me interpreting things wrong, but like, yeah, it left a bad taste in my mouth. So, I mean, I'm gonna keep reading the series to see if there are any more. Obviously, it's dated, right? This is from like early 2000s, but that doesn't excuse anything. So, I mean, I will continue just to see, but this is gonna be like a 3 strikes you're out type of deal. There's only so much you can excuse for time period of when things are written, you know? I'm gonna move on. My nonfiction of the month, oh, I got it from the library. It was World of Wonders. I forgot the author's name, but the author is half Indian, half Filipina. A lot of the things that she said in it were relatable because it was a memoir, but told with nature fun facts, like about plants and animals. And it was like interweaved so seamlessly. Brilliant, talented writer. And the way like her personal experiences paralleled with certain facts about animals or plants. It was such a fun time reading it. It was super short and there were illustrations. I almost bought it for myself, but then I canceled my Pango order because I was like, okay, $4, but like there's also a chapter about motherhood that I don't need to reread, so it'll live at the library. But that was my nonfiction of the month. I'm continuing my goal of reading 1 nonfiction per month that I successfully completed last year, so figured why not? Gotta learn some shit, you know? Buzzword. The Buzzwordathon is an annual reading challenge hosted by Books on Lala here on BookTube, and there's like a word for each month or like a theme category type thing. And this month it was the 3 types of there, so there, or there. I had a plan. I was gonna read Out There Screaming, but it's also her Literally Dead book club pick for February, so I figured I'll just push it and read something shorter and just get this goal out of the way. So I listened to Are You There, God, It's Me, Margaret by Judy Blume, also because it was on my 100 must reads in your lifetime scratch off poster, so I was like, okay, at least it'll knock that bird off, you know, with that stone, whatever the fuck I'm saying. But I gave Are You There, God, It's Me, Margaret 3 stars. Again, I wasn't the target audience. I actually read a lot of middle grades this month, like more than usual, so that was fucking weird. But again, new year, new me. This would have been very entertaining I mean, it still was for the nostalgia, and like if you put yourself in a middle school girl's point of view, like in her shoes, which obviously I once was, it's a good book. It's a helpful coming of age, relatable type of book. Like, you know, she gets her period for the first time. She's talking about religion, and which is ahead of my time. Like when I was not thinking about religion in middle school. Discussions about religion and like obviously boys. There was like a 7 minutes in heaven type thing, but it was for 2 minutes. I forgot what it was called, like 2 minutes in the closet. I don't remember. But there were all those like coming of age things. I learned that the phrase I must increase my bust was from that book. My mom told me about that when I was younger, and I heard that in school all the time, and I never knew where it came from. So fun fact, it did originate from that book. Don't think I'm gonna watch the movie adaptation though, because I don't really care. Kindle books. So I read Something Akin to Revulsion by Judith Sonnet. That was Joey and I's Unmuted and Unhinged Sprints extreme horror novella that we read for Patreon. We're called the Lair of a Vampire themed. Link is always down below. We would love to have you as a fellow vamp if the bloodlust is calling to you at this very moment. And Unmuted and Unhinged Sprints are a perk for all tiers, but we also have movie nights and video chat meetups, buddy read, bloody read discussions, regular exclusive sprints, more videos with Joey, like lifestyle videos, journal photos, things like that, all over there. The Discord is always active every single fucking day. Like, trust me, I've joined Patreons where the Discord is like dead as hell. So I'm just so appreciative for this little community, and we say good morning to each other every day. Like, they're my family. I fucking love them. That's my little spiel about the Lair. Something Akin to Revulsion, I gave 4 stars. It's a collection of 6 extreme horror stories. There were a couple that were really good and had my jaw in hell. It was a fun time reading that one, and we had some good visceral reactions to that one. It's one of the better ones that we've read. It might be the only Kindle book I read. I started another book on KU, but didn't finish it last month, obviously, so that was the only one. I'm trying to utilize my Kindle as much as I can every month because I do pay for KU. So 500 plus pages. I don't believe I read any that were that chunky, so I did not fulfill that goal, but that's like a loose goal anyway. Did not read a classic. Book of the month, I'm trying to read at least one every month. I actually read 2 this month. Butcher and Blackbird by Brynne Weaver, which I gave 4 stars, and this was actually my Lair Bloody read. We just had the discussion yesterday. It was the first time we actually had a discussion for buddy reads. Usually we were just reading them to discuss in the Discord, but in 2024 I added the perk of video chatting about the book, so that was fun. This is a serial killer romance, and I really love the writing. The sex scenes were pretty good, but I was here for the murders. If you liked Mayfly, you'll probably love this as well. The kills were just so good. There's accidental cannibalism as a trigger warning, so take that information as you will. I thought the romance was really good, but I was here for the serial killer part because there was a chunk towards the end where I was like really bored by just the romance scenes, but I will absolutely be reading Leather and Lark when it comes out in June. And then the other one, oh, I have it over there. I'm gonna get it because I'm not gonna want to insert a picture. Okay, I guess technically I read 3, but Lunar Love is a book of the month edition, but I didn't get it from my app. I got this from a friend, so it doesn't count towards my book of the month challenge goal, but whatever. So Lunar Love, I gave 3 stars. I mean, it was on my January hopefuls, but then Sharni from Sharni and Books made it her February book club pick, so I was like, let me get ahead. I read the first page a few months ago, and it like compared love to the moon and everything, so I was like, okay, I need to read this physically. I ended up reading it audibly anyway, but I highlighted everything on the first page, literally the whole page. And this is about 2 rival matchmaking services. The male love interest matchmaking service is an app. It's essentially like AI. There's an algorithm and that matches you up. But then the other one, the female main character runs, is handpicked based on your Chinese zodiac signs. They meet and she doesn't tell the guy who she is, what she does, and vice versa. They eventually tell each other, and I just didn't like the main character. She was so tunnel vision on compatibility based on Chinese zodiac signs, because okay, that's what she does for a living, but at the same time, don't shut everything else off to like swear off love just based on that. So it was kind of annoying. Plus the narrator made her sound a little bit annoying in my opinion. So yeah, it was 3 stars, but I really liked the discussions on Chinese culture and like traditions and stuff, because I'm Filipino and we have very different culture and traditions and everything, but there are some parts that overlap, especially when it comes to like family dynamics and everything. So I enjoyed that aspect, and that's why I got 3 stars. I also read The Unmaking of June Farrow by Adrienne Young, and I gave this 2 stars. This was probably my second worst book, or most disappointing of the month, because it's about this family curse, and there's this magical realism thing that I hate in books, and I didn't know that going into it, so I guess that's my fault, but it also doesn't say that in the synopsis, I don't think. But there's also this part where it pushes the narrative of women changing their minds about not wanting kids and then wanting kids later in life, and then how fulfilling it becomes, and blah 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 blah. Obviously, if you know me, hated that part. So that's why I gave it 2 stars, because that really pissed me off. Plus, I love magical realism, but not the type that's in here. Adrienne Young's writing, I just don't think is for me, but I did like Spells for Forgetting a lot more, so if you wanted to try one, you want to take my advice is Spells for Forgetting. But I also hated Fable, so maybe don't take my advice at all. But yeah, I will be selling these 2 on my Pango, which is always linked down below, so stay tuned for that if you're interested. This is the longest recap ever, I'm so sorry. Lastly, we have my goal of reading 1 arc per month. I know I have a lot of monthly goals, but I am who I am. I read The Invocations by Crystal Sutherland. I read this for a Penguin Teen reel that I had to make, which I'm super proud of. So if you don't follow me on Instagram yet, it's always linked down below. I really enjoyed making that reel with Joey. We went to like Forest Preserve and stuff, and I wore a witch hat and a whole outfit for it. This came out January 30th, so it's out on shelves now. I also have a link in my bio if you want to use that link. This is a YA horror murder mystery type thing. I preferred House of Hollow, to be honest. I gave this 4 stars still, but like a low 4. House of Hollow I gave 5 stars, like solid 5 stars. I love her writing though. This does have a lot of creepy body horror, so if you're into that, you'll probably love this. But there's witches, demons, necromancy, there's a sapphic little romance as well, female friendships, there's family drama. There's a lot packed into this book. I think it was well done in terms of pacing and stuff. It might have been a little bit too long for my personal liking, but objectively I think it was fine. I was just reading it for a while. It took me by surprise how much I loved it. I mean, I knew I was gonna love it, but I didn't think it was gonna include a lot of what it did. I was expecting just witches, not any of that other stuff. So that was cool. There's a murder mystery, a serial killer. You figure out who's involved, and there's like a big reveal and then little reveals. So yeah, it was a good time. I also got this edition from Illumicrate Evernight, and it's so fucking pretty. There's a freaking skeleton. Love the end pages. Like, says necromantia on the cover. It's gorgeous. Moving on to the actual wrap up. Let's fucking go. Every time after the recap, I already feel like I've been talking forever. Okay, so we have Riot Baby by Tochi Onyebuchi, The Invocations by Crystal Sutherland, and Green Fuse Burning by Tiffany Morris, I believe is the author. I would reread The Invocations, but oh my god, look at the back too. I enjoyed it. I really liked the characters as well. There were a couple characters that I wasn't a huge fan of, and it got annoying. That's why it was 4 stars, and there were a couple parts that dragged, but overall I would keep these on my shelves. I would reread it eventually. I would rewrite I think I would rewrite Riot Baby, take out all the dystopian stuff, and I would have rather read like a contemporary book about this family's lives. This I listened to on audio because it was a short audio book. I liked the narration and everything. I just didn't understand like the sci-fi dystopian part of it. There was also a part where they were talking about the sisters' powers, and there was this animal involved that scares the shit out of me. I gave Riot Baby 3 stars. It's classified as sci-fi, but yeah, it's just not my genre. And then Green Fuse Burning, I would burn, which I'm really upset about because I waited for my library hold for weeks. One of my vamps, Destiny, read this. It was her first 5-star of the year. So I was like, I want to read it. I don't care. I love the cover, and it's by an indigenous author, and I just didn't get it. I still gave it 3 stars, and the writing was beautiful. I just didn't really understand the plot. So that's just me and my stupidity. But I mean, if you like, I guess, flowery writing, I would recommend that. And it's super short. It's like 97 pages. Next 3, we have Foe by Ian Reid, Something Akin to Revulsion by Judith Sonnet. Oh, Joey has that book. I could have just used it, whatever. And then Lights by Brenna Thummer. Is that the author's name? That one's a graphic novel. I would reread Foe, hands down. Ian Reid is becoming one of my favorite authors of all time. I still have to reread I'm Thinking of Ending Things now that I know that I love his writing and that he's such a talented
author.
Picked this up on a whim because I wanted to watch the movie adaptation, and the movie is just as good. The actors did so well. Saoirse Ronan and Paul, whatever his last name is, Connell from Normal People. Immaculate casting. So this is like a psychological horror, almost sci-fi type thing. If you like Black Mirror, read this book. It feels like a Black Mirror episode, and you'll see that like almost immediately. And there are subtle things that Ian Reid does that hints at the big twist at the end, which I caught on to, but I still loved it. I absolutely loved it. I predicted some things, but I was still like, wow, that's brilliant and subtle and just super well done. I just could not believe how much I love this book. It's just such an unexpected gem too. Like, I don't see this in stores too often. I found this at Half Price Books. This is so underrated, so I'm glad they made a movie adaptation because hopefully more people pick this up. I would rewrite Something Akin to Revulsion. I think just like a couple of the stories just didn't hit, so I would just rewrite those or just take those out altogether, and it would have been a perfect story collection. And then Lights I would burn. This was not my favorite. I gave Lights 3 stars. Oh no, I still gave it 4 stars. I liked the ending, but the lead up to the ending wasn't as great as Delicates. I really liked the second book in this Sheets series, but Lights, it also had a lot of female high school drama or middle school drama. I don't remember what age they are. Not a fan of that. It didn't have as much depth as the second book in terms of like mental health and stuff. It was mainly the backstory of the ghost, the little sheet ghost that they are friends with. It wasn't as good as the second one, but I think I liked it more than the first one. Next we have Bloom by Delilah S. Dawson, This Winter by Alice Oseman, which I read from the library, Lunar Love. I would burn Lunar Love, already talked about it. Reread Bloom. I really enjoyed this. Thank you to Destiny for gifting this to me, and one of my vamps, Birdie, recommended this for my 12 Recs by 12 Vamps project that I'm doing this year, and it's a short little thing. I really enjoyed the sophisticated writing, the creepy gothic vibes, and I love the ending. It's one of my favorite horror tropes. I mean, there was a lot packed into this, but at the same time, there was a lot of like dawdling and emphasis on the obsession. It's an obsession story, but there's also so much that could have gotten taken out, even in the short of the book. But all in all, it's a sapphic, good horror time. I gave this 4 stars, but I I would reread this, I guess rewrite this winter. I really enjoyed getting the perspective of the sister, but I don't really think we needed a perspective from the little brother, who was like 7 years old. There was one chapter at the very end that was from his perspective, and I just didn't think that was necessary. I like that we got more background on Charlie interacting with his family and also interacting with Nick's family, and how like chaotic holidays can be and how rude people can be even if you're family. I gave this winter 4 stars. Next 3, Starling House by Alex E. Harrow. The Princess and the Grilled Cheese Sandwich. I forgot the author's name, but that's a graphic novel that I got from the library. And Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. I would reread The Princess and the Grilled Cheese Sandwich. I really enjoyed this one. The art style is gorgeous. It's a Brazilian author, so that's cool. It's sapphic. I really like the plot of the king was sick and dying, and the king's daughter didn't want to marry a man, so they disguised her as a guy, and then she started falling for this other princess. And I love the wordplay on all the different cheeses and all the characters and places named after cheese. It was so cute. I gave that one 4 stars. Would rewrite Starling House. I think my big thing that took me out of the story and like the gothic vibes that I wanted was how modern things were, like especially how the main character spoke. I think if her personality was a little bit toned down, more like dark, I feel like this didn't go as dark as I wanted it to. And honestly, it's such a forgettable story. I will read more from this author for sure. I gave it 3 stars. I just didn't care for the romance at all either, so I would take that out. I would just focus on the house and the creepy town and her finding things out about her past and whatever else. Sucks because the cover is gorgeous. I had an arc. I was so excited for it, but it's a 3-star book. And then I would just burn Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. I mean, self-explanatory. I wasn't the target audience, and once was enough. I'm actually flying through this wrap-up. I'm surprised. Where the fuck is June Farrow? Yeah, making of June Farrow. Brooms. I forgot the author's name as well. That's another graphic novel I read from the library. And Tokyo Ghoul Volume 8. I would burn this, actually. We already know. I would reread Brooms, because that was also a queer, witchy, good time, and the art style was pretty cute. I guess cute's not the word for it. It was very aesthetically pleasing because it had a lot of solid color backgrounds, and like the color palette of each panel and each like spread were done really well. Plot was okay. There was like this witchy competition thing that they kept talking about, but I was mostly there for the art style. There was also one part that made me almost cry. But yeah, if you're looking for a queer witchy graphic novel, definitely pick up Brooms. I gave that one 3 stars, like a high 3. And then Tokyo Ghoul Volume 8, I would rewrite. I don't fucking know how. You know what? I'll burn Tokyo Ghoul Volume 8 because I remember nothing about it, and then I'll rewrite June Farrow and take out the motherly thing and use a different form of magical realism. Mostly the motherly thing, because if I change the magical realism, it'd be a whole different book. Next 3, coffee break. We've got Tokyo Ghoul Volume 7. I'm like past halfway through that series, so I think I can make it to the end. A lot of them are filler volumes, so I don't know. Anyway, Delicates, which is a second Sheets book, and World of Wonders. Would burn Tokyo Ghoul Volume 7. I couldn't even tell you what I liked about each one. Like, just know when I read Tokyo Ghoul volumes, I can't really tell you much. I would just watch my vlogs for each one. That's the only time I'd remember, is right after I finish them, because I can't distinguish one volume from the other, which is sad, I know. But I don't remember when they talked about certain weapons or foods or certain scenes that happened. There's a lot of fight scenes. That's what it was for Volume 8. There were a lot of fight scenes, too many fight scenes that I didn't give a shit about. Volume 7, I believe, is the one where they talked about these weapons and like technology that they used to like hunt down ghouls and like kill them off, but I don't know. I gave Volume 7 3 stars, and I think I gave Volume 8. I gave Volume 8 2 stars, so there's that. Would reread World of Wonders, hands down. It's such a short nonfiction book, and again, it was so clever and just brilliant, and I learned a lot about plants and animals in that one. And then Delicates, I would rewrite. I don't know how. Maybe take out the parts of the drama. I don't need to read about young girl drama. Been there, done that. I don't need to read about it anymore, so there's that. But I did give Delicates 5 stars, and that was a pleasant surprise, because Sheets was, I think, 3 stars for me. The second one was the best one in my opinion. Trigger warnings for bullying, suicidal tendencies, and just mental illness in general, but I think it did a good job handling all of that. Next we've got Butcher and Blackbird by Bryn Weaver, Kill for Love by Laura Picklesheimer, and then, ooh, Blackouts by Justin Torres. I think I would reread Blackouts actually. This was my first book of 2024. I gave it 4 stars. I really like the writing and all the mixed media, but I think upon reread then I can fully grasp things more and what's going on, because it's a series of vignettes. It's just like parts of it felt very discombobulated to me, because yes, they all connected, but at the same time it felt like it was all over the place. There's also a whole chapter where it's like in italics and it's just talking about this like film script. I can't really explain to you what it is, but it's historical fiction. There's a character named Jan Gay and Juan Gay. There's this book that they find. There's like some parts that are fiction, but a lot of it is also based on real people and real situations. Like Jan, I think, was a real person, but I think Juan was not. You find out from the synopsis that there's someone dying and it's like a good friend of one of the main characters. It kind of like takes you back, shows you how it led to that point. Honestly, I forgot a lot about this. I just know there are pictures that you should not be showing in public because people will question what you're reading. But yeah, I think it's a very well done book. It's very sophisticated. It's written really well. It's quick because it's in vignettes. Like there are some pages that are like half pages, chapters are short. So I had a fun time reading it. It's just a very serious book. It talks a lot about like queerness and love. It was a feel-good time at the end. I felt smarter reading it. I felt enlightened, which is ironic because it's called Blackouts. Wild. I would reread that. I would rewrite Butcher and Blackbird, just make the romance scene shorter, but I would change nothing about the murders in this book. I think it was so good. The most iconic proposal scene ever. This one's gonna stick with me for a while, especially because it was our first bloody read discussion and it was a fun time. So I'm excited for the second one. And then I would burn Kill for Love. It was a like good for her female revenge story, but it was following sorority girls and frat boys, and I'm just not into that demographic of people to read about, especially. So that was annoying. A lot of the characters were annoying and just like too high maintenance for my liking, but there were some scenes that were really fucking good. I gave that one 4 stars, but in this case I would burn it. I'm glad I didn't purchase it because first of all, I don't want that cover anywhere near me in public or on my shelves, but also it's fine as a one-time read. Next 3. We've got Dark Waters by Catherine Arden, which is another middle grade. I told you, I read a lot this month. The Invisible Hour by Alice Hoffman. The Neighbor Favor by Krista Forrest, I believe is the author. Okay, right off the bat, I would burn this, which is really sad because this was my first full moon book club pick of 2024. I will link the live show down below, but I hated this. It was Nathaniel Hawthorne fanfic, as my patrons were saying. I gave it 2 stars, and it wasn't a 1 star because it does have a lot of good bookish quotes. There's also a lot of like pregnancy and motherhood stuff in this that I wasn't a fan of, which is depressing, but I do like Alice Hoffman's writing a lot, so I'll be reading more by her. But I've read Practical Magic, Rules of Magic, and now this, and they've all just been kind of mediocre, but I'm willing to give her more of a chance. There's a cult in this called The Community. It didn't give too many culty vibes, but in a way at the same time it did. I know that doesn't help whatsoever, but also there's that magical realism trope that I hate. If you like The Scarlet Letter, you'll probably maybe like this, like if you're a huge fan of The Scarlet Letter. It definitely made me want to read The Scarlet Letter at some point in life because I do own it especially, but the Nathaniel Hawthorne obsession was just kind of weird to me. Kind of weird for all of us. Super bookish, and it's short, so there's that. The Neighbor Favor I would absolutely reread. I listened to it on audio and I just loved how bookish that one was as well, and I liked they didn't talk about like the classics, like dead white men classics, you know? Like they talked about Toni Morrison and N.K. Jemisin. They talked about more diverse people. Aside from all that, the romance itself was really cute. It's about this fan of an author who works at a publishing company, and she starts emailing him about like work related stuff, and then they start emailing back and forth about other stuff, and then he ends up moving next to her in New York. Neither of them knew until like they started connecting the dots. It was a cute time. There's also like a lot of depth in it because it talks about familial things and why they are the way they are based on their past and their background and everything. So it was good, and it was recommended to me by Noelle from Noelle 7 Pages. That was a fun time. And then Dark Waters, I guess I would rewrite to not involve the water because like the vibes were creepy, especially for a middle grade. This is a 3rd book in the Small Spaces quartet, and I gave this one 3 stars. Y'all know how I feel about books revolving around water. It's a really strong hit or miss. It didn't really do much. It just talked a lot about coming of age and finding your potential and standing up for yourself, being more independent. I mean, it's a middle middle grade, so there's all those coming of age themes. So I did appreciate that because it was cute. It hit the feels just a little bit, just like the creepiness of it. Nah. My favorite so far was Small Spaces because it took place in the fall. There were like creepy scarecrows and shit. So I recommend starting the series if you're looking for a creepy middle grade. Twisted Love by Anna Huang, The Auster Academy by Lemony Snicket, Goddess of Filth by V. Castro. I would reread Goddess of Filth. I really liked how short this was. I said in my vlog, I think it's in the vlog that's uploading right now, that this is everything that My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix wanted to be. I really enjoyed this. I like that it's more diverse by a Mexican-American author, so it had Mexican culture in there. They were these five friends, were holding a seance, and one of the friends gets possessed, and then they figure that out from there. She's possessed by the goddess of filth, this like ancient goddess, and it makes her do things that she wouldn't do normally, and it was just interesting to read, and obviously it was super fast. I liked the writing, and I would absolutely read more from V. Castro, but I gave her 4 stars. Really enjoyed this one. I read it during a snow day, so that was extra fun. And then The Auster Academy I would obviously burn. I already talked about it, worst book of the month. And then Twisted Love I would rewrite. The cringy fucking sex scenes. I will link the vlog down below where I quoted a lot of those sex scenes, but it gets bad. I really loved the plot though. The romance too was cool, but like the plot behind the romance where it involved more thriller-esque aspects, I appreciated. So I gave this 3 stars, but I love Anna Huang. Anna Huang's writing, you can tell, has evolved based on the Kings of Sin series. I wish I read this series first so I could see that instead of like going backwards, you know? It was hard to be like, okay, like give it some grace, but I love Anna Huang's writing. This is also best friend's brother. No. Best friend's sister. Brother's best friend. However you look at it, you know what I'm talking about. I'm sure a lot of you have read this at this point, but I didn't hate it as much as I thought I would. And I'll definitely continue the series because I own all of them. All right, I think that was it for those 3, right? Almost done, almost done. We have Sorcerer of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. This is a reread for me. I read this back in college, started my reread last year, never finished it, and I was determined to finally get this off my currently reading tab on Goodreads. Love Boat Forever by Abigail Hing Wen, and I Want to Die But I Want to Eat Tteokbokki, I think is how you say it, which is another nonfiction I read and I forgot to mention in the recap, but I read 2 nonfictions this month. Would reread this again and again and again. This is one of my favorite fantasies of all time. I gave it 4 stars the first time, but I talked about it all the time because it was one of the few fantasies I read way back when. I always recommended it to everyone looking for a standalone fantasy, and I always thought I gave it 5 stars, so I was like, oh my god, I gotta reread it to make sure, because I didn't realize I gave it a 4, and it absolutely was a 5 this time. I love Silas more than anything. Silas is one of my favorite fantasy characters, and he's not even the main character, but this is about this girl who works at a library, and she's trying to be like a library, is it apprentice, something like that? She's training for something at this great library, and then she ends up at Nathaniel Hawthorne's manor. That's who the romance is between, but it's like a little hate to love. There's some good banter for YA. Sometimes that could get cringy, but this does it so well. And like I said, Silas, especially once you find out his role in the story, love him. I love Margaret Rogerson's writing. Highly recommend if you haven't discovered this hidden gem yet, because it is pretty backlisted. I think it was like 2019 or something. This is one that's worth going back to. I would rewrite Love Boat Forever to follow a whole different character because I didn't like our main character. We were following Pearl. Also take out all the TikTok shit. We don't need that. I hate social media in books, so that's just a personal thing, but I do love this series. I still gave Love Boat Forever 3 stars, like a high 3, because I did like some of the side characters and I liked certain scenes, but it was definitely the worst one in the series, I hate to say. I gave the first 2 5 stars and I cried both times, but this one was just meh, and I probably won't purchase it even though I own the first 2 books. It's basically about these like very talented students who go to this like abroad program called Love Boat Taipei. This program is known for scandals, like kids getting in trouble and partying and finding love and all this shit. That's basically the gist of it. Pearl is the little sister of the main character in the first book, so I think I just liked that friend group more than like her. Like she's a lot younger and I just don't like her personality. I don't know. And again, a lot of it revolved around like going viral on TikTok for doing something problematic and not realizing reading it, and it's this whole thing. But at the end of the day, there was this one character who knew a lot about, like, knew what he was doing, okay? And he was educating her on like why what she did was wrong, why other people thought it was wrong, why it wasn't actually wrong, but to some people it might have gotten interpreted differently. And then there was this whole like mystery adventure thing that involved something from her ancestors and like a musical instrument. So there was a lot going on. I just really appreciated the discussions that the guy was having with her, because she was young and naive and he had a lot of knowledge that she needed to hear. And then I Want to Die But I Want to Eat Tteokbokki. This is a memoir about mental health. It's a lot of conversations with the woman's therapist, and I know it feels weird that I'm burning this, but I mean there's so many memoirs out there that I want to read, so it's just that I just picked this up on a whim because it was a short audiobook and I was like, oh, I'll get a second nonfiction in for the month. It was hard to read at times. She had a lot more than like depression and anxiety going on. She had, I forgot what it was called. It starts with an H. If you've ever experienced depression, there are a lot of relatable parts in this, but just beware that it's hard to read at times. But I thought it was cool that it was in the format of conversations with her therapist for the most part. All right, the last two could be any of the reread, rewrite, burn. They're wild cards and there's less than 3. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Okay. Faebound obviously would reread so many times. And then The Deep by Rivers Solomon, I would reread that too. Maybe rewrite to not make it water related again. I feel like the story could also be set on land in like a different context. It was about the transatlantic slave trade and the slaves that were thrown overboard. They obtained the ability to like live underwater, so it's like that type of fantasy. But if you switch it around and just not make it in the water, then that would have been fine. But it was also cool to have that concept. I would reread it. And if I said rewrite, I would also take out this one birthing scene. Let's go with that. I would rewrite it, take out the birthing scene. But River Solomon, such a talented writer. I loved Sorrowland by this author. The Deep is a novella and I love the audiobook as well. I followed along with it and it was done really well. Gave that one 4 stars. And that is it, my dudes. That is everything. Thanks for sticking around to the end. If you made it to the end of this video, it's on this cover. Oh, put the sparkles emoji. If you just type in sparkles in your emoji search bar, it'll come up. It's just like the stars, the twinkles. Yeah, put that in the comments down below if you made it to the end, because there's a bunch of them on this cover. Let me know if you've read any of these, if you agree, disagree, whatever. Talk in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you had a vampy day. Don't forget to do some self-care, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!